Hello and welcome to the Five Factors Podcast. I am Tal Prince here with my co-host and co-founder, the legend that is Matt Adair. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm never quite aware of what my legend is when you intro me that way, but okay, great. I have a legend about me.
You do, and I introduce you that way because it's ambiguous. It could be positive, it could be a negative legend, but legendary is the key.
Okay, well,
So you
there we
have a
are.
legend. You
There
have a
it
legend.
is.
It's just what it is.
Yeah,
So anyway,
I'm
man.
doing well, but here's the deal. So my kid came home from the germ factory known as school, and I came home with a cold.
Yeah.
So let's add some bonus value for our listeners. So when you get a cold, what is your go-to remedy? Like, how do you knock out a cold as quickly as possible?
Me, I don't get colds. I just start as sinus infections. That's just what happens. And so at that point, I text my doctor, and then I'm on a regimen of steroids and antibiotics that keep me awake and surly for 5 days.
Well, that's great. I can't wait to do a podcast episode when you're in the middle of one of those. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I know. You're looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
that's right. So here's what I've learned. So my sister-in-law is a witch doctor of sorts. She is a
Nice.
musician. She's a singer, and so she has this remedy that so far in is working well. So it's a combination of some tablets called Unca Cold Care. These are all like homeopathic type stuff. So you combine that with Cold Calm, another homeopathic tablet that you kind of dissolve in your mouth, a shot of apple cider vinegar, and then you can go further. But so far, 2 days in, I have a cold, but I'm not miserable. So for those of you out there who do have colds, do get colds, unlike my co-host here, then there you go. Maybe that'll help you. So I don't think you're going to find that on the just the shelves of your garden variety grocery store. You may have to do a little
No.
hunting, but those two things are fantastic. We'll link those up in the show notes, so you can get them straight off of Amazon World, and they'll send them right to your house.
I'm sure that they will for a slight fee.
Yes, Amazon Prime is our friend.
It was Unca and what?
Unca, and then it's called Cold Calm. So there you go.
I'm having a hard time getting past a product called Unca.
Yeah, I mean, Umpka, excuse me. I'm even mispronouncing it. I'm
well,
sorry.
okay, no.
There goes our endorsement.
No, I get that.
Yeah, cherry flavor, Umpka.
Well, if you're going to try Umpka, the cherry
Yes.
flavor is preferred.
Yes, made from traditional South African medicine. So to our South African listeners, shout out to you. Bless you.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
Very
All right.
nice.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just by way of finding an anchor, since this is only podcast number 3 for us, let's go back and review what our framework is and what we're working from to help leaders. This 5 factors framework. Why don't you review that?
Yeah, again, this is the 5 Factors Leadership Framework. The entire idea is to help identify the areas of our life that we need to focus on as leaders if we're going to thrive and if we're going to lead for the long haul. So the 5 factors that we talk about are resilience, strength, then the importance of presence, and hope and ambition. So when we talk about resilience, which is what we're going to be talking a lot about today, we're talking about our mental health. When we talk about strength, physical health, when we're talking about presence, we're talking about our relationships and relational health. When we talk about hope, we're talking about spiritual health, and then ambition is our vocational health. So it's pretty much an entire framework that covers every aspect of our life. And the idea is that as we work on each of these areas, they work together to give us the best opportunity to make the most of what God has given us and put in front of us, the assignment as leaders. And so that's it. I mean, and so what we do on these podcasts is we try to deep dive on one of these, hopefully help you see how it all comes together as a general overall framework. But we also want to be pretty practical, help you understand what's behind it, but then give you the opportunity to take next steps.
Yeah, and we've all heard the stat that's been quoted forever about 1,700 pastors a month are leaving the ministry.
Yeah.
Recently, it's been discovered that shockingly, a statistic thrown around by people in the church is not true.
Yeah.
I know that's a shock, but you've done some thinking on that
Yeah.
that I find interesting. So talk about what that means. That 17
Right.
pastors a month are not actually quitting.
So, I mean, a lot of well-meaning people, let's just assume it's well-meaning people,
Yeah.
are basically using that number, 1,500 ministers a month, 1,700 ministers a month are leaving vocational ministry. And our friends at Lifeway Research did some work in 2016 that basically came back and said that's not true. As best we can tell, that the number in the U.S. is closer to 250 per month, and that's great. 250 leaving ministry is a lot healthier number than 1,500 or 1,700. But I do have some concerns about that, because just because people aren't quitting
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're healthy and thriving. And some of the reasons why is because for a lot of people in ministry, they're working jobs where they're not likely to get fired.
Mhm.
Many ministers are actually working beyond retirement age. So I was looking
Mhm.
at another bit of research that said in 1992, about a third of ministers were over the age of 55. So that would mean two-thirds are under the age of 55. Now we are in a situation where the most recent research puts that number around half. So half of the men and women in vocational ministry are over the age of 55.
Mhm.
Now, I think there are probably a lot of reasons for that. We're basically are able to age better as we go on.
Mhm.
Health and technology has helped that, but we also have some people who are hanging around because not just because they want to, but because they have to. They haven't set themselves up well for retirement, and they're in jobs where they're not going to be fired. Beyond that, my concern is not so much about people quitting, even though that is a concern. It's what about the people who stay? And
Mhm.
and and if we're all going to stay in ministry, are we going to continue to thrive? And I just find it hard to believe, based on research that we've seen, based on coaching clients, counseling clients that we have, based on stories and people that we know. It's hard for me to believe that everybody who's hanging around is operating out of a posture of health.
Yeah, that's interesting because what do you think about, is it in your mind, do you believe that's more a result of, the guy hanging around not wanting to let go and has not developed a pipeline underneath him, of young leaders coming up that he's uncomfortable turning the keys over? Or is it that we just, as we look in at the younger generations, we're not seeing a lot of people choose ministry as a profession? Is it a lack of guys and men and women coming up through the seminary system, or is it a lack of men and women willing to give over the keys? Which is it?
It's probably yes to all of it. I mean, on some level. I mean, I do think that what we're seeing is, I think we have a healthier doctrine of vocation, that
Mm-hmm.
more and more men and women, as they get through school, high school, undergrad, grad school, they're understanding that you can play a part in the kingdom of God outside of a local church context, or just working for a nonprofit. So I love the faith and work movement that's really helping people see that you can go make a difference in the marketplace and advance the kingdom and the glory of God. I do think that what we're finding is that it is challenging to be able for churches to be able to keep up with the financial needs of families. And so I think that the middle class conversation that's going on economically across the United States is a very real challenge. There are expectations financially that don't match up with the realities of what people can be paid for in church life. And then I do find, as men and women get older, one is that they're able to work longer, and so why quit? I
Mm-hmm.
do think that that's real, but I also find that there is an inability for most people to conceive leaving a job that pays well, because there's nothing there in terms of retirement. And then what are you going to do? Who's going to hire somebody who's 65 years old or older to start a new venture, to start a new job? So I think those are all realities that we're facing.
Yeah. So at the end of it, it doesn't mean that since we don't have this many, ministers quitting every month, doesn't mean that everybody that's doing it is necessarily healthy.
No.
There's a lot of different issues going on there that can contribute to that. A lot of it economic, financial, some of it mental, emotional, some of it just resources.
Yeah.
Some of it is, a lot, and you deal with this in your field, as a coach. You're seeing a lot of pastors who aren't developing a pipeline underneath
Right.
them. So there's a lot of factors there, and none of them implying that this is a great thing that we have conquered ministry burnout.
Right, and that's why I think we've taken the approach that there isn't just a single solution here. That when we see people talking about emotional intelligence, and we're going to talk about that today in emotional
Mhm.
health, I'm thankful that a lot of people inside the church world are talking about it. I don't think that we can just go, well, that's what's been missing, is people
Mm.
just aren't emotionally healthy. But it is a big issue,
Right.
and it is a big challenge, and it is a concern that we both have for leaders inside the church and inside ministry, that
Hmm.
when we think about mental health, that we just wrestle with, and we run into leaders who struggle to be resilient, and they struggle with their mood, and they struggle with things like depression. And so I want to dig into this a little bit with you,
Yeah.
again, as a licensed therapist, in terms of what you're seeing, and how does this topic of let's just talk about depression
Sure.
and leadership within the church. What are you seeing, and what do we need to talk about in this topic? And particularly for people who may be wondering why they feel sad and maybe sometimes hopeless. They want to quit, but they can't even find the energy to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see this a lot. I have a lot of ministry clients, clients who are professional ministers, and depression is very often what they come in with, and they don't necessarily realize that.
Yeah.
Let me speak to men for a second. If you are a male and you're listening, and you don't really know, you just know something's not right, but you can't put your finger on it. You can't, and you wouldn't say depression because you don't necessarily feel quote unquote sad. And that's kind of what we think of when we hear about depression. We think of, oh, well, somebody who's just crying all the time, or they can't get, they can't get out of bed, they can't do anything, and we've all seen the depression medicine commercials that say depression hurts, and you're not aware necessarily of any pain. Discomfort, yeah, but how it manifests predominantly in males, depression looks a lot like anger. And so, in fact, one of the diagnostic factors that we look for is, are you having consistent outbursts of anger
Hmm.
that are what we say disproportionate to what has happened?
Yeah.
Is that a consistent thing? Are we, so if we interviewed your staff, would they say, I mean, the dude's blowing up for no reason. We just don't understand, all the blowups that the guy's having, and so that's one of the areas that we're going to kind of key on, and kind of the two areas that I really look to if I'm looking for depression in a male is irritability. What's that look like? And motivation. What is your motivation? Do you feel motivated to create? Do you feel motivated to do? Or are you having a hard time finding any motivation to do anything? Are you numbing out an awful lot? Are you just kind of sitting around watching TV a lot? Are you sitting around just surfing the internet mindlessly? Are you engaging in things like that where you're really sedentary, not really accomplishing anything, aware that you're not accomplishing anything, and really don't care that you're not accomplishing anything?
Right.
These are things that I start to look at. And also sleep. I want to know, you talked last week in our podcast about, strength, and it's eat, sleep, and move. What does the sleep look like?
Yeah.
And this is why this framework that you and I are working with is so integrated. I need to know what's going on in these other areas as well. It's not just your mental health. I'm looking at, all right, what's your life looking like? And weight gain is a part of this, weight gain or weight loss. If your weight is moving 5% in either direction inside of a month, that's a sign that we want to do some further exploration. What's your sleep look like? Are you having trouble waking up? Do you just
Hmm.
want to stay asleep? Anxiety is the other way around. Anxiety has a hard time getting to sleep and staying asleep. Depression is, oh no, I may have a hard time getting to sleep, but staying asleep. Once I'm there, not a problem. I cannot get up. That's my issue.
So,
Um,
so would you describe depression as an acute problem, or is it sort of kind of an umbrella issue that can encapsulate a lot of things that are going on under this. So, is this a
Hmm.
symptom of something greater, or is this actually really the root of what's happening with somebody?
I think it's both and. I think, so the answer is yes. There's major depressive disorder, and it's come to stay. It's been here for a series of months. This is a longer lasting issue. And then there's a depressive episode. There's episodes of depression. So if you hear somebody say, I'm having a bout with depression or something like that, that's more prone to be episodic. And you would expect it, like in the death of a loved one, job loss, career change, major transition. You can see a depressive episode in that person. But a major depressive disorder is different. That's longer lasting. And that's when we start to look at, pharmaceutical intervention. And some people are just genetically predisposed to depression. So I would encourage everybody listening to look at your family history, know your family history as it relates to depression. Is there a history of that in the family? Was my grandmother constantly depressed, or did I have was my mom, bipolar? Look at those things and see and know that, just so you know, because if you're genetically predisposed to it, chances are you having serious bouts with it that's probable. It's probably going to happen to you. And so that's when we look at, if it just won't go away, then we start to look at, well, maybe medicine can be a help for you. Um,
Anything just speaking to, I mean, we're going to be, we have people listening from different perspectives on this.
mhm,
Talk a little bit about medicine
mhm,
and kind of your perspective as somebody coming from, again, as a licensed therapist. How do you
mhm,
see that integrating, and what would you say to somebody who's not sure medicine is the right solution for them,
mhm.
because ultimately they see it as a spiritual issue as well?
Yeah, yeah, and I do understand that perspective, and I hear it a lot. And my personal view of that is, I think we, as a body, as the body of Christ, don't really look at the difference between episodic depression and major depressive disorder. I don't think we're drawing a distinction. I don't think we're drawing a fine enough line there. We just kind of treat it all as oh, well, you're not believing enough, or you're not trusting enough, or
Right.
your faith's not strong enough. And hey, well, David was depressed, and I mean, and he wrote the Psalms, and so maybe you should go write. Yeah, I get that. And I'm not opposed to any of that. I just know when there are genetic issues involved, and really at the end of the day, what depression comes down to is that there are some synapses in the brain that just are not firing correctly.
Mm.
And if I can give you, if we can point you to medicine that's going to help those synapses fire correctly, that's all we're talking about,
Right.
then why wouldn't I do that? If I believe, if I believe at any level that God has given us the gift of medicine, and let's switch it. This is what I do all the time with pastors who are like really uncomfortable talking about medicine. I'm like, if you were a diabetic, would you have the same problem taking insulin?
Mm.
I mean, no. Well, why not? Well, because my kidney's not working correctly, and it's not filtering things correctly, and it's not producing enough insulin, and so I'm just helping my body by injecting it. Right.
Yeah.
That's all we're talking about, man. It's not the kidney, it's the brain. And it's not insulin, it's dopamine and serotonin, and the synapses are not working correctly, and we're going to help that work correctly. That's all we're talking about. So
In
that's my
terms,
perspective on that.
assuming there's a distinction between spiritual depression, Martin
Mm,
Lloyd Jones wrote a helpful book on that, and then chemical
mm.
depression. What's a helpful diagnostic for somebody who's trying to figure that out, or do they need to not try to self-diagnose and they need to sit down with somebody who can help them parse those things out?
Yeah, I'm always going to suggest sitting down with someone to help you parse that out.
And talk a
You
little bit
know,
about that in terms of the why behind that.
well, I mean, I think just at the end of the day, all of us have blind spots. And my biggest blind spot is me. I'm just not, I'm just not as aware of how things are coming together. And again, if I'm just really angry all the time, I would not necessarily tie that to, what we view culturally as depression. I wouldn't see that. But when I sit down, with an expert who's going to go, oh, well, this sounds like it may be depression. I may push back on that a little bit initially, but as we go through that assessment process, and that's what we're going to do with you, we're going to put you through an assessment process. It's not just a couple of questions and hey, let's get you to a psychiatrist, write you a prescription. It's none of that. It's let's go through an assessment process. Let's see what's all really going on. And so there's so many tools that we have that can help you. And so it's always best to sit down with a licensed professional and go through an assessment process and find out exactly what the issue is and how severe it is,
Right.
because that's going to determine the right treatment plan as well.
Right. So if somebody's sitting, they're listening to this and they're going, I think this is true for me. I think I'm probably struggling with depression. Somebody has suggested that maybe I'm dealing with this. What would be
Mhm.
a good, healthy next step for them to take in order to get on the road to just seeing, is this an issue? And if so, how do I get healthy?
Yeah, I think you can do a couple of things. I think predominantly one of the things I'd love to see you do is find a local therapist. I recommend that everybody in ministry have a therapist for a couple of reasons. One, you're just going to run into stuff and it's going to be hard to deal with, and you need somebody that you can talk to. Therapists, we are HIPAA bound. Okay, so we have to be confidential. We are legally bound to confidentiality, and that's one of the things that all the pastors that I deal with come in here and say that I've just never been able to talk about any of this because I've been afraid that somebody would use it, against me, somehow. And so they, coming into a therapist's office, a psychologist's office, a psychiatrist's office, we're HIPAA compliant. We have to be. So we are legally bound to be your lockbox. Okay. So you can come to us and talk about anything, and it stays with us with a couple of exceptions, but so that's really key. So I think everybody ought to have that on speed dial, around them.
And I mentioned that, you did not mention or use the words biblical counselor there. So, are you making a distinction between therapists and biblical counseling? So, how does this work out for you from your perspective?
Straight into the teeth of the lion. Yeah, so I would say I'm not opposed to biblical counselors at all. I, in fact, am a biblical counselor. I've just not been trained in what is commonly known now as biblical counseling. But here is the thing: a lot of people that are, that refer to themselves as biblical counselors are not trained, other than how to apply scripture to any particular kind of emotional issue. They're not trained to look at this, assess this, diagnose this. They're just not. And so they may be, though well intended, doing more harm than helping. So that's just a critical point for me. And a lot of their perspective is that it's going to come down to a faith issue. It's going to come down to, geez, what's your level of faith and trust? And I just disagree with that. I've just seen too much brain science to think anything else.
Right. So, if somebody's looking for the type of therapist you're describing, is there a website, is there a resource where they can go find the right type of therapist that's going to be most helpful for them?
No. There's not like a depository online of all the good counselors, but I would say just Google Christian counselors in your area, and talk to some of your members. Who's going to see whom? Who's helping? Who's good? If you are really concerned, if you feel just the darkness descending upon you, then I would say try and get in with a psychiatrist really quickly. Just takes a step out of it takes a step out. Because, if you come to somebody like me, if you come to a counselor, we're not allowed to prescribe medicine, and the psychologist is not allowed to prescribe medicine. You have to have a psychiatrist for that.
Right.
And I recommend, if you're going to start antidepressants or any type of medication for any mental disorder, I really recommend dealing with a psychiatrist, just because they're more in tune with how to regulate and get that prescription dialed in just right. Many people have tried an antidepressant and quit it in a few days because they didn't feel right on it. And I know it can really jack you up a little bit, but there's an art to getting that dialed in right, getting those levels dialed in just right. The same as if I start messing with the mic levels, here, it's going to jack this recording up in a hurry. It takes an engineer to get that dialed in right, and that's what a psychiatrist does. So I recommend, Google psychiatrist in your area. And yeah, I would always prefer, at the end of the day, I would prefer that person be a Christian, be a believer. But at the end of the day, if I don't have a Christian one in town that's good, I'm going to go to the best psychiatrist I can get a hold of. Same as if I had cancer. I can talk personally. Last year, I had 4 herniated discs in my neck. I never asked my neurosurgeon where he stood with Jesus. I did not care. I knew he was in the top 1% of neurosurgeons in the world. I dug that. I'm going with that guy, because the pain had gotten to the point where I had entertained going down to the voodoo priestesses in Jackson Square in New Orleans. It was that bad. I was like, whatever, I don't care. But I really, at the end of it, I want to get to the best practitioner I can get to. So if it's a Christian, bonus. And with mental health, I really believe it's best to have both. If we can't have it, we can't have it. So that's what I would just Google your area, find a psychiatrist, find a psychologist, find counselors. And as pastors and ministers at any level, it's a really good thing for you to get in the habit of calling the local therapist in your area, having a chat with them, find out what their orientation is. And that does not mean their sexuality. That just means what working theories are you into? Are you a behaviorist? What are you? Have that conversation with them, because one, you need to know who you can confidently refer your people to when you don't have the chops to counsel whatever issue they're struggling with. You need to know who you can refer to. You need to have a network that you feel confident with. So call us up and talk with us. We're very happy to talk with you. And have conversation with you. And we're going to send people your way too, because we get people who are in need of spiritual help as well as emotional help. And so it's a two-way street. So know the therapist in your area and kind of the bigger counseling practices. Just call them, and start to get to know them.
Right. So, this is episode 3, and this will probably be the first of many times where we will basically show our cards and say, we believe in common grace, and we believe that God does really good work through people who aren't part of his family yet. And when it comes to these different areas of health, we want to find the people who are the most skilled, the most gifted at being able to help us in these areas of need. So if you are struggling, the first step is to sit down with somebody who can genuinely help you and help you take the right next step. Anything else you'd want to add for a leader who's wrestling with depression, or even somebody who's sitting here thinking about people in their ministry that they want to help? Anything else you'd add to that is just easy next steps, simple next steps might be an easier way.
I think just to sum that up is understand that this is more likely than not, it's just a brain issue. It's just synapses not firing correctly. It's not necessarily a faith and trust issue. That may be part of it, but it's not necessarily always that. And so and that helps. Hopefully that helps give you some empathy for the depressed people. that are sitting out there, and other ministers that are absolutely depressed. Spurgeon battled depression his entire life. He was chronically depressed. And so have empathy for this people group as they sit there, and have a network to which you can refer them to. And if you need help, make sure you're getting the help. Lead by example in this area.
Yeah. So when we're talking about mental health, I mean, people will automatically go to mental illness and things like that. But I think it's what we have in mind is something broader than that, and we really are talking about the importance of things such as emotions and feelings. And you wrote a good blog post that really was talking about the relationship between relationships and our feelings. And so when we talk about emotional health, which has become kind of an issue du jour in ministry world, there's a lot of different groups and people and leaders who are now talking about emotional health, and we're thinking about that. Talk a little bit about just emotional intelligence and where you see this fitting into this need for resilience and how we deal with life when it gets hard, when it's challenging, and how critical is that? Because we're dealing with leaders who, by and large, work with their minds. And we're saying it's pretty important to have your hearts, your feelings, your emotions engaged as well.
Yeah, and that's I think why we chose the word resilience, for this area, because I don't think you can have resilient and be truly a resilient person in any way if you are not aligned. If your emotions, what we say mood. So if your mood, mind, and motivation are not aligned, you're not going to have resilience. It's all going to fall apart. If any one of those is not working correctly, it's going to fall apart. We're going to say, in therapy land, we're going to talk about congruence. Are you living a life congruent with who you want to be and what your convictions are? Which is why so many of my clients who suffer with any type of addictive behavior, they're so distraught because it is, they are living so incongruently with their values, they are just racked with guilt and shame about that. But they're letting their mood, their emotions, run the day and rule the day. So if something bad happens to them, if they get rejected, if they perceive that they've been rejected, they feel sad, they feel hurt, they feel rejected, and because of that, they're then going to make a decision. Because they're just going to make a decision to go numb that pain, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so they're going to go use whatever their drug of choice is. So they kind of skipped the mind part. They went from mood to motivation, and off they went. And they made a bad choice. It happens all the time. And so I got to check in with what my mood is. What am I feeling right now? And do I know that? And just to add another M word, though I abhor alliteration in general. Am I being mindful? So let me mindfully check in with myself. What am I feeling right now? Okay, what emotions am I currently feeling as a result of whatever has just happened to me? The deal is this: Jeremiah, still correct. The heart is wicked and deceptive. Okay, just is. So if I just go with whatever my heart is, though Disney and everybody else in culture wants to tell me that's the thing to do, follow your heart. You better not. I can't do that. I did that. I wound up in rehab. Unpleasant. So the deal is, I have to take what I'm feeling and then ask myself if that's correct. Ask myself if that fits. Ask myself, well, what did I do wrong in this situation? Or how could I have brought this on? Did I do anything? What's happening here? Or should I really feel this way? Am I right here? Because our feelings are real. That never makes them true.
Right.
Okay. So whatever you're feeling is real. You're really experiencing that emotion. That doesn't make it true. And it doesn't mean that that's now an actionable thing for you. It may lead you to some really dark places. So we need to bring the mind in, evaluate what our emotions are. So evaluate our mood, and then make a choice and an action plan based on that. So that's how mood, mind, and motivation work together for us.
Right.
In this framework, we have to check that. And when we're congruent in those, when those three are lined up very, very well, we're going to be making better choices, and then that's going to feed into all the other factors very, very well, I think.
Right. No, I would agree. And if you think about emotional intelligence, you go back to Daniel Goleman's book, which just sort of brought everything together.
Mm.
A couple of decades ago, Travis Bradberry's Emotional Intelligence 2.0. When I think of this in terms of leadership, okay, again, as the Five Factors of Leadership podcast, if you really want to get it down to why this matters for you, because at the heart of emotional intelligence are two things that are critical: self-awareness and empathy.
Yep.
And, Goleman makes this case, and others have followed behind it, to just say, look, IQ is important. EQ is probably just as, if not more important for a leader, because so much of what we do as leaders really comes down to our social engagement. And I know this for me personally, that I watch people around me. There's some people around me who their natural emotional intelligence is just extraordinary. And you
Mm-hmm.
can tell because they basically interact with people almost flawlessly. And there's a sense in which they know themselves well enough, and they can read other people so well, that they are just able to be the kind of people that when you're around them, you feel like they are your best friend. And they just know how in any situation to not only handle their business correctly, but they're able to get the best out of other people in the right sense of the word. And so if you're trying to figure out, I mean, why are we talking about things like emotional health? Because you're not going to be able to lead well without it.
Right.
And my guess is that a leader who doesn't work on this, and you can cultivate this, this isn't something that you're born with or you're not, that you can cultivate self-awareness. You can cultivate empathy. You can develop this. And so one of the things, Tal, that we talk about in terms of building self-awareness is really coming down the ability to articulate our own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've talked about this. It's in the blog post that we'll link up. But talk a little bit about the feelings wheel and about how something like that can help somebody who has a hard time being able to say, in this situation, this is how I feel. What's the benefit of using something like a feelings wheel?
The benefit of it for a lot of us is we just lack emotional vocabulary. We just do. We don't, and I wrote in that blog post, and the story is that, and you see this. I mean, if you ask most people how they're feeling currently, they're going to say good. That's not an emotion. One, two, it's really not descriptive. They're just kind of placating. It's a social contract. I know you really don't care. So we're just kind of moving on. But when someone really does care and they're asking you, how are you feeling right now? What's going on with you? A lot of us don't have a vocabulary. We'll say, if it's not good, we'll say bad. That's not an emotion either. And until we can really identify the emotions, what's going on in our souls at the moment, until we can really get to that and define that and describe that, we're not going to be able to process it. We're not going to be able to move past it. It's just going to kind of bottle up, and we're going to stay stuck. And so when the feelings wheel comes along, it's just a very simple tool. And there are, hundreds of different versions of it. The one I linked to in that post has them categorized, which I like. It has them categorized on the right side of when our needs are being met, and then on the other side of when our needs are not being met. Because that's going to tell you where you are. And it helps you also process, okay, so what need do I have that's not being met right now? Why am I feeling this way? What are the needs that are not being met? And now what can I do about that? Can I ask for what I need? Who do I need to talk to? And so it gives you a roadmap and a way out of, just kind of staying stuck in a negative emotion. At the end of the day, it gives us words to help talk to others. Particularly if you're going to talk to somebody like me, I need to be able to know what emotions you're feeling, and I can help a lot more effectively.
Yeah. And again, as leaders, if we're modeling this for other people, we're going to begin to change the tenor of our leadership culture. I was texting with somebody today at our church, and I said, how you feeling? And the response was, I'm okay-ish. I don't think we're going to find that on a feelings wheel anywhere.
Not an
And
emotion ish.
so, and
Yeah.
I didn't correct them on the spot. I mean, they came back and said, "How are you feeling?" And I used words
Mhm.
that I've had to learn, I've had to develop, and so
Right.
I'm grateful for that. So I think that that is a good application. So again, if you're listening through this in terms of next steps, because that's what we're here to do, is to help you with next steps. If you are wrestling, if you're wondering, if you are struggling with depression, sit down with somebody who is trained to be able to help you,
Mhm.
and then begin to explore your own theology, your own philosophy about the integration of the way that our enemy works on us spiritually, and how
Mhm.
that affects us in very physical ways, including struggles, illnesses of the mind.
Mhm.
Second is that if you're going to lead well, you have got to continue to develop emotional intelligence. And so we just said, if you're going to do that, you need to be self aware. We also said you need to be able to understand the feelings of others. You need to be able to read other people well. So
Yeah.
I'll give you one little hack that has been very, very helpful for me in the last couple of years. It's simply eyes, mouth, shoulders. That's all I'm looking for when I'm interacting with people.
Mhm.
I'm paying attention to their eyes. If you read their eyes well, then you're going to be able to see certain feelings that are going to come through people's eyes. Okay. You pay attention to their mouth. People can give things away non-verbally about how they're feeling, just intuitively. And there's a fantastic book out there called Captivated. Again, we'll link this up in the show notes too,
Mhm.
by somebody who's done the research to basically go pay attention to these things. You're going to be able to learn this because you want to help people. You want to love them
Mhm.
well. And the worst thing that we can do is basically to be communicating or not reading them when they're giving us signs and signals. They're just not using words. They're using their eyes, they're using their mouth, they're using their shoulders. You can tell people's posture and how they're leaning there. It's such as one simple
Mhm.
little way for you to think about how you create empathy. And empathy is simply our ability to be able to see the world through somebody else's perspective and to be able to join them, not in just the way they see the world, but the way they're currently feeling about the world. And so that's what
Mhm.
we're after there. So, Tao, anything else on emotional intelligence for this episode, as we're just kind of giving an overview of this entire part of the framework called resilience?
Yeah, I think overall that's probably enough. For this. I mean, there's many, many podcasts that come on this, I'm sure, but I would say right now, at the end of the day, just get the feelings wheel out and just start to use that. Just start to check with that. If you want bonus points, take this home and make copies for your family
Yeah.
and have the entire family start to use it. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give your children is to give them an emotional vocabulary.
Yeah.
All too often as parents, we shut our kids down emotionally because we don't have the time to deal with their emotion in the moment. And we just want, it's very common in Christian circles. We want first time obedience. I will not go all the way through that. But give your kids emotional vocabulary. Give them that to use. Help them communicate to you with your spouse. This is really, really helpful. So start to sit down with each other and talk about how you felt today. What emotions are you feeling right now? Start to share that with each other. And what you're going to see if you use the version that I posted up, you'll start to see, holy crap, I don't feel like my needs are being met. Or wow, my needs are being met. This is a great place, and then you can see God's provision, in that. And if you're feeling your needs are not being met, you can question, okay, are they being met, and I'm not seeing that, or do I need to ask for help? Am I not praying through this? Am I not asking for the help that I need? So what can I do? So it's really helpful. So we get real comfortable with that feelings wheel because that starts you at mood, then you can add your mind, and then you can make decisions.
That's great and really helpful. And again, I want to make sure that as you're listening to this, you clearly understand the benefit of this and how this impacts every single part of your life and leadership. When you are mentally healthy, when you are resilient, it's absolutely going to impact your physical health and your strength because
Mhm.
it's going to help you with your sleep. It's going to affect the decisions you make about food and exercise and movement. It's absolutely going to impact your relationships and your presence. And so you can imagine if you're struggling with depression or any other kind of mental illness, then you're going to struggle to be present to the people that you care about
Mm-hmm.
most. It's absolutely going to impact your spiritual health and what you believe about who God is and the hope you have about what he's done on your behalf and the good news that we call the gospel. You'll actually be able to experience it as good news. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to our jobs and leading other people or just staying in the jobs that God has assigned us to, this is going to basically give you the guts to keep going on the days when it's difficult. It's going to give you that extra gear to keep
Mm-hmm.
pushing the envelope and to make the most out of the assignment that God's given you. And so some of you, this is going to hit you exactly where you are. And so you're going to go to the show notes. You're going to look at every single resource that we link up there. And that's good. But if you're sitting here and you're skeptical about this, I just want you to step back and think about the possibility that this might be a critical element in your ongoing development. And so we're going to say this a lot. In every single one of these, deficiency, when you're not healthy in one of these, you cannot say you are as healthy as you possibly can be in any of the other parts of this 5 factors framework. So pay attention to this. If you hear us talking about depression and you're wondering, dig a little bit. If you hear us talking about emotional intelligence and emotional health and you're not sure you are, or you're not sure that you're cultivating that as well as you can, dig a little bit. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be where we can help you, is to give you the courage and the tools to take the next step. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to get into the show notes and I want you to look at any of those resources that are there for you, articles that we've linked up, a couple of books we've talked to. Absolutely download our free 5 factors framework overview,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to give you the big picture that we're talking about in these first few episodes, because we're just trying to basically say, here's the playing field and here's what we're going to be working with. Each and every week when we show up and we have these conversations with you, we're trying to basically help you from this perspective. So we're not coming up from all over the place. We have some very simple things and some very specific things that we want to focus on, because we believe that it's going to help you be the best leader you possibly can be. So we'll come back next week. We're going to continue our journey through the 5 factors framework. And one of the things that I'm very thankful for you as the listener is that to be able to bring somebody who is as talented and skilled and trained as Tal is, it's going to help you. Today was unbelievably helpful, and I think we're just going to see that in the weeks to come. So, Tal, I appreciate the time, and
Thanks, man.
can't wait till we get and see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be able to talk about this in a hopefully a healthy and responsible way with leaders in the Christian community, because that to me gives me hope that this message begins to filter out and others get help as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be the world that we're living in, y'all, that we're going to joke about South African medicinal remedies for colds, and then we're going to get deadly serious when it comes to things like this, because you know what? We care about you, and we think that these things are critically important for you and for your health. And so it's an honor to be able to spend time with you. If you have not subscribed to this podcast already, I just encourage you to go ahead and do that. We're available iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. We're going to be available where you're listening to this so that it's super easy. You just show up. We'll be there ready to have this conversation with you and ready to help you take a next step towards being the best leader you possibly can be. So until next time, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And thank you so much for listening.